Okay, so I originally planned for this video to come out in January, but I figured it'd be best to come out right before the movie. This is going to be the comic book reader's guide to James Gunn is very open about the inspiration books behind this movie, going so far as to release a box set of the comics for this film, which I have bought, although I don't have it. I'm recording this way before it even comes out. But I have read all 4 of these Superman comics. And I'm going to tell you a loose story summary so that you can go tell all your friends that you know what the comics are like, even though you've never held one in your hands, like most people on comic book Twitter. I'm obviously not going to be going through every single plot detail in these comics because they're not going to be adapted even remotely one-to-one. Most of these comics are used for characterization purposes more so than plot purposes. They're to give us cool visual ideas and imagery that he can try to adapt into the story, but this is a fully original, completely brand new Superman movie. Also, it's very important to me that people watching this read the comics themselves. I don't want to just say that this is what happens in the comics, this is what's comic book accurate, because people who do that are alt-right losers who don't actually care about what they're talking about. They just want the money that comes with it. They're getting money for this? So at the end, I'm going to be telling you how to read these comics and any comic book you could ever want for free. Yeah, for free. These 4 main inspiration comics are as follows: All-Star Superman, Superman for All Seasons, Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, and Kingdom Come. Which I don't think is a Superman comic, but whatever. And just because it seems like it's kind of a pretty big inspiration, I'll throw in What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way, otherwise known as Action Comics 775, otherwise known as Superman vs. the Elite if you're going by the movie adaptation title. You know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna recommend this book to anybody who wants to get into and understand Superman, and I think it's gonna have a lot of similar themes to the movie, so we'll throw in Superman Red and Blue while we're in there. I have read all 4, 5, 6 of these comics, and I'm going to give you highlight moments and characterization that will definitely, for sure, make it into the movie, or you have to comment it. You have to comment that it didn't make it into the movie, and I'll be so embarrassed and sad, and it would just be really crazy if you commented that. All-Star Superman. The comic book that James Gunn often cites for even the creation of this project is All-Star Superman. This is a comic book written by Grant Morrison, illustrated by Frank Quitely, and colored by Jamie Grant. This story is often believed to have, at least in some part, been inspired by the death of Grant Morrison's father. This is especially apparent when you look at how the book handles the death of Jonathan Kent and the general plot structure of the book being about Superman dying. As a kid, when you look at your parents, you see these infallible beings, these things that are above you. That's the reason why so many kids are known to emulate their parents. These people know everything. They understand it all. They're immortal. They're undying. But what happens when they're not? All-Star Superman is about all the ways that Superman prepares for his inevitable death. Basically, he goes on a mission to save some astronauts who are about to fall into the sun, and accidentally gives himself super cancer by just having a lot of solar radiation in his cells, to the point where it's kind of killing off all of him. Naturally, this was a scheme orchestrated by Lex Luthor to make it so that Superman would die before Lex also dies from the death penalty. Classic Lex Luthor plan. But the book isn't necessarily about him fighting Lex Luthor. It's about him trying to save the world in the time that he has left. He prepares for this by doing a couple different feats of strength. One, he gives Lois Lane his powers for 24 hours. He creates a little potion that she drinks, and it allows her to live life as him without the weakness to kryptonite, which is important. This, while being a birthday present to Lois Lane, who doesn't believe he's Clark Kent. In fact, one of the few problems I have with this story is how Lois Lane refuses to believe Clark is Superman for the entire story, despite being shown so much evidence She just refuses to believe it. But it's actually a plan to be able to replicate his powers and pass it on to other people as he desires. It's proof that his abilities aren't solely for him and he can give it to other people when he's gone. He then finally releases the bottle city of Kandor. He finds them their own planet far away where they could peacefully live and not have to worry about coexisting with humans who definitely wouldn't be chill with that. He also goes back in time and is able to see his father when he's about to die, when he couldn't do it before. This is used to reveal to us what happened. How did Jonathan Kent die in this universe? And it's probably my favorite depiction of it, of anything that I've seen so far. I do think Smallville, ironically, gets kind of close, but is a little weird about it. This story, Superman is fighting a villain who appears in Metropolis. And he's kind of struggling. He's very focused on this fight when he hears Jonathan Kent's heart start to give out. He immediately leaves. He beats the bad guy and he starts flying towards the farm as fast as he can, but he's just not fast enough. He's just not good enough to save the people that matter to him. And we see that it tore him up until this moment when he could go back in time and see his father and know that it was all meant to be. Know that this is how everything should be happening. His final, and in my opinion, most important moment is around the end when he creates a little universe, like a mini dimension, that basically serves the purpose of testing to see what happens in a world with no Superman, no superheroes in general. He makes our universe. And in that universe, we still create Superman. We still come up with the idea behind the character. And I think there's something really beautiful to that. That in a world created purely out of Superman's hope and optimism that we'll be able to get on without anybody to protect us, we still make him. Those ideals came through and we wanted to share it with everybody else. So we created Superman. But this is ultimately the ultimate showdown between Lex Luthor and Superman. Hi, welcome to the hammock. I'm wearing a shirt that will be seen through the entire rest of this video. The last section was recorded a couple weeks ago. Everything else has been recorded in like the past couple days. The part of All-Star Superman that I'm here in the hammock to highlight is the ending, more importantly. Lex Luthor has Superman's powers. He rises up, says he's going to take over the world, then stops. He realizes that Superman can see, hear, smell, taste everything. He can see the slight shifts in the atmosphere. He can hear every heartbeat. He can hear a pebble hitting Mars. He knows everything there is to know about this universe. But he just is Superman. He still fights to protect us even though he knows all that binds us. He has the truths that humanity has spent centuries looking for, but he doesn't hold it over us. He does his best to help. He tries so hard. He's a scientist. He does so much work to provide benefits for society, but he also doesn't want them to rely on him. I think we're far from that moment in the movie. I think Ultraman seems to be similar to Superman in terms of powers. And whether it's because he's Parasite or a clone that would go on to become Bizarro, or maybe even Superboy, who knows? Ultraman might have that Lex Luthor moment. Maybe Clark will show him the beauty of Earth, take him around, give him that same realization that we're all together on this small blue pebble in the galaxy. He's going to teach Ultraman that maybe we could fight to protect this world that we all inhabit, because if you have the power to, why wouldn't you? Superman for all seasons. This is really a short run written around a comic book trope that I've really fallen in love recently, where characters kind of narrate to the audience how they feel about the main hero. It's just a great way of telling you as the audience, if you were in this world, Superman would represent this to you. Some of my favorite examples recently have been Absolute Superman with the Lois Lane issue, where she's kind of narrating the whole time over just what it feels like to be around him while he's at work. Or Absolute Batman with Alfred, where he does the same thing, which is an interesting parallel. This book is one of those, but every issue is for a different season of the year. So there's 4 issues with 4 different narrators who are related to Clark relative to like where he is in that issue. The first one I think is like Lois Lane, then there's Lex Luthor, then Lana Lang, then Pa Kent. There's a moment in this story that I think is so important where Superman quits because he fails to save a person and he doesn't know how to handle it, and Lex Luthor gets in his head, and it's all a scheme from Lex, and I think that it just hits so hard. I genuinely believe this might be a better book for general audiences than even All-Star Superman, because that one is more of a deconstruction while this one is part of the construction, if that makes sense. With For All Seasons, I think the important thing is the hopelessness that Clark feels after he fails to save Toxin, even though she helped to save the city. Basically, Lex Luthor asked this scientist who's obsessed with Superman to create this poison gas throughout the city that only she could cure. So Superman takes her and says, okay, you know what, fine, Lex, I'll take this scientist who is going by the name Toxin. She wants to be a superhero like Superman. And they fly around the city and they get rid of this evil toxic gas and they cure everybody. But the exposure to the toxic gas kills Toxin. Superman feels really guilty about this. He didn't even really want to bring her with him, but he was willing to do whatever it takes to save the world, even willing to work with Lex Luthor and do what he wants. But when Toxin dies, Lex Luthor tells Superman that he can't save everyone. He's not a real hero, and he'll never understand what it means to be human. He can't die, so how can he know to prevent somebody from dying? How can he know that the toxic fumes would kill Toxin, because he's not affected by it? This hopelessness instilled in him by Lex Luthor is what drives him to eventually go home, quit being Superman, spend months away. Basically the entire winter. The entire winter book is about him going back to Smallville. And eventually Clark refines that purpose. He saves the people of Smallville from a small natural disaster, and he decides, even though Superman can't save everyone, if he quits, he's not able to save anyone. So he goes back to Metropolis, and he continues being Superman, and he saves the day, and it's great and hopeful. And I think that sense of hopelessness and that refinding yourself is going to be a crucial aspect of this movie. We see a good amount in the trailers, or even in the teaser trailer that is the only thing that I had seen when I wrote this script. It seems like we're going to have a moment of clarity at home. We're going to see Clark. He's going to go back to Smallville, and he's going to say, I can't do it, Dad. Everybody hates me. I failed. I'm a failure. Maybe Lois is going to come back and talk about how she's been investigating Lex Luthor and realizes that everything is Lex Luthor's fault. Then a monster is going to attack the city. There's going to be danger. And Clark's going to decide he needs to go back. Martha gives him a new suit. I got to say it now. In the trailer, we get this shot. Look at his face. Look at his head. Look at that neckline. You see that neckline? That looks like skin. It looks like he's not going to have a collar. He might have a new custom suit made by Martha Kent. There's also a chance that, unfortunately, Pa Kent could die or be set to die. I think that the you can't save everybody message is very important and is probably going to be crucial to this storyline. And given this moment with Clark and Pa, that personally I think is kind of weird. It feels kind of cut around and out of place. I think Pa Kent might have a heart condition. There's even a chance, although I doubt this, but I did write it because Superman might begin working for the Justice League. There could be a plot line where Superman works for the Justice League to try and get money to pay for Jonathan's heart condition. Eventually, he might get kidnapped by Lex and find the strength to break free when he hears Pa Kent's heart start to give out. He flies home as fast as possible. Maybe he's weak and falls right around the North Pole. Krypto brings him home to find out that Pa Kent has passed. Clark wasn't fast enough. Maybe we get a note from Pa that
inspires him to continue being Superman that he always was, and not sell out to some corporation that cares less about humans than profits and good looks. I don't know how exactly that prediction is going to hold up given the new trailer and all the information we have now, but I think there's something there. I could see Superman doing some work for the Justice League, maybe to help with a heart condition from Jonathan. I don't think he's going to fall down near the North Pole, because I think that's going to happen way earlier in the movie to establish Krypto as a character. But I could see him racing home after Pa Kent's heart starts to give out and just not being there fast enough. Maybe he even sees Jonathan collapse in the yard like in Superman 78. Either way, I think there's a real chance that Jonathan Kent dies or is on a path to die at some point in this movie because of that message of not being able to save everyone. There has to be somebody that Superman fails to save. And it has to be part of the reason why he's so down. Because even in the trailer, we see he knows that he did the right thing by stopping that war. He is a hero. But something has to happen for him to be this gloomy later in the trailer or in the teaser and when he's in Stag Industries. The Justice League International comes out to help him. Is that him going to them to ask for a job? Or is that them stopping him from going upstairs straight to Simon Stagg to say, what the fuck, why did you make Metamorpho? Because at this point, he might have even met Metamorpho in the jail cell. Maybe some kid that Superman tried to save, he failed to do so, and they died, and Superman's down, and he's super angry now, and he feels like quitting. Or maybe it is Jonathan Kent, and he feels really hard about it. Again, this story, a big part behind it, I don't know if it's necessarily of the writing, but the story of All-Star Superman is always attached to a father, to the idea of fatherhood and the passing of such immortal figure, either on purpose or by accident immortal. Basically, I can guarantee you at some point Superman is going to feel bad, going to go home. Martha and Jonathan Kent are going to convince him that it's okay to feel bad. He might have failed at some point. He might feel guilty, maybe because of the interview with Lois. Lois is going to go, she's going to talk to him about all the stuff she's learned about Lex Luthor in her investigative journalism journeys with Mr. Terrific. She's going to learn about Krypto, like you see in that trailer scene. They're going to see Jonathan and Martha comforting him. Maybe there's an interaction with Kryptonite. Superman's going to go back, maybe with a new suit, and he's going to save the day and prove that he deserves to be here. He can't save everyone, but he can't quit either. For this next part, I'm actually not going to go to the floor at all, because I think that pretty much this entire story is only here because of how it relates to the movie. So there's not much of a synopsis. So I'll just speed through the synopsis really quick, and we'll do this here.
Kingdom Come and the Elite.
Before we can really speculate more, we have to go and talk a little bit about Kingdom Come by Mark Waid and Alex Ross. Classic story. Although I don't personally consider this to be much of a Superman story, because it's just about a bunch of heroes and more of a civil war than it is specifically about Superman and his actions, although he plays a crucial role in ending that conflict. And I'm going to combine this section with Superman Action Comics 775, What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way, being portrayed by Superman and the Authority, because I did buy 775. I bought What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way, and it was shipped and delivered to the wrong address, and I'm just too lazy to deal with it right now. I'll get it at some other point.
I just recorded the outro, and I don't want to have to do the whole Audacity syncing things. I'm just on my phone right now. I have it now. I got it finally. Here it is in all of its beautiful glory. 775. I pulled that off Dome. I got the number correct off Dome, off top. I'm just like that. I'm just nice like that.
Both of these stories focus on the world that Superman inhabits, and how it responds to a hero like Superman with these old-fashioned beliefs and methods, which seems to be true about the movie and the world that the movie is going to fall into. First, we're going to talk about what's so funny about True Justice in the American Way, again, portrayed by Superman and the Authority, which is pretty good. It's written by Grant Morrison. It's all right. I haven't I haven't finished it. It's fine. It has the Kingdom Come logo on it, so that's pretty cool. Also, I'm not gonna say Action Comics 775 or what's so funny about True Justice in the American Way the whole time. We're just gonna call it Superman versus the Elite because that's the name of the movie that was directly adapting that comic. Now, both of these stories are about the world full of heroes and how it responds to the idea of idealism and especially not killing bad guys and being this beacon of hope. Typically, Clark is shown as the outdated solution to bad in the world, and more of a modern solution of killing criminals becomes popular. Typically, Superman stands in opposition to these ideas and is typically shown as being unpopular or not liked by the other heroes or by other citizens with the presence of these heroes around. Although they usually end with him proving them wrong and inspiring them to be better, or beating them in a fight and sending them to prison and then inspiring the world to be better. The movie's probably going to have a sort of plot line where he's faced with these new Justice League International heroes and has to team up with them to save the day, probably from the kaiju monster. I think so far we haven't seen much from after the halfway mark of the movie, and I think this kaiju is going to be the first thing that we see. I do think the Justice League International is going to be really close to killing the kaiju. And Superman is going to have to realize that not only is it like alive and it wants something, or doesn't mean to hurt anybody and is like scared or something, he's going to stop the Justice League from killing it. And instead, he's going to help it calm down and go away. Probably he's going to be asked, why did you do that? And he's going to say, something optimistic. Oh, what if it comes back and starts wreaking havoc again? And Superman would say, I'm down, I'll help. I'll just send it away again. Eventually, I do think he's going to slowly convert the other Justice Gang, actually. I just realized now it's called the Justice Gang officially. He's going to slowly convert the Justice Gang over to his methods and his system of doing things, starting probably with Mr. Terrific, then I imagine Hawk Girl, then probably Guy Gardner. Or maybe not even Hawk Girl and Guy Gardner, because they still have to be part of the Justice Gang for Maxwell Lord. Because in order to be part of the Justice Gang in Peacemaker, which is supposed to take place after Superman, they still have to be in the team. But who knows, maybe they'll leave the team and they'll get better costumes. I really want Hawk Girl to have a slightly better costume. I kind of like Guy Gardner's. It feels a little closer to who he is, but it needs more green. And then they're going to fight the final boss, who might be Solaris, might not be Solaris. I'm struggling to tell based on the new footage we have. I could see this moment from the first teaser photo that we ever got of the movie, and with Lois and Clark hugging in the teaser trailer, and in the trailer, I could see this being Lois coming to visit Superman when he's on some sort of house arrest. Maybe the Justice League puts him there, or the government puts him there and tells him that he can't interact. He can't stop this fight. He's not allowed to be Superman. And you could see him putting on the boots, putting on the costume, because he can't stop. And Clark is going to go out anyways, and Lois is going to support him. For sure, we're going to get that. I do think it's going to be a house arrest. I think Lois is going to be a big supporting factor. Again, she's good at grounding Superman, and I think that she is going to be good at using his words against him to motivate him to do stuff. Either way, that's what I think is going to happen, and what I'm almost certain is going to happen. We have a baby kaiju toy. So clearly the kaiju wants the baby.
Whatever happened to the... it's too long.
I've actually talked about this story before. In my Man of Steel video, I mentioned this comic. Whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow? It goes basically through the idea, Superman disappeared, there was a big battle at the Fortress of Solitude, and Superman disappeared. So a guy finds Lois Lane, he asks her, hey, whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow? Title sequence. The quick synopsis of the story is like this. Most of Superman's biggest villains come back and are so brutal. They're fucked up levels of evil and brutal, and Superman eventually has his identity revealed because he just has to in order to save the day, in order to save Lois and his friends at the Daily Planet, he ends up getting revealed as being Superman. When he notices how dangerous his villains are becoming and his identity is revealed, he says fuck it. He grabs all of his friends and family in his vicinity and flies to the Fortress of Solitude and gets the fuck out of there. It's not important to know like every detail. Justice League can't help. Brainiac has taken over Lex Luthor's body. A bunch of Superman's friends and family kind of fight like to the death in the actual Fortress of Solitude, and a lot of them die. We also get this harrowing moment of Clark just crying in the Fortress of Solitude alone. It's really fucked up. It's a really fucked up moment. It like seeing Superman break down is always hard. Eventually, Superman defeats Brainiac, but nothing really goes back to normal. Nothing's ever really good still, and he realizes the only villain who hasn't been seen, who has the power to do this, is, of course, say it with me, you all know how to pronounce his name, Mr. Mxyzptlk. Which is true. Mixie pops out of nowhere, says, hey, I'm bored as fuck. I'm tired of being like kind of goofy or good or whatever. It's been 2,000 years. I'm just going to kill everyone. I'm just going to be pure evil and destroy this dimension because fuck it, why not? And Superman realizes he can't stop Mixie. The whole like saying his name backwards or 3 times thing, like, yeah, it is how you go back to your dimension. But also, it was a game being played by Mixie a lot of the time. Is that like, oh, you trick him into doing that. But now he's just not gonna fall for it. Because he's evil. He wants to kill everything and everyone. Clark grabs the Phantom Zone projector and aims it directly at Mxyzptlk. And Mixie panics. Which, personally, it doesn't change anything if he gets sent to the Phantom Zone. Because he can just go home and then come back. You know, it's not a whole thing. But ultimately, Mixie panics and says his name backwards, which does send him back to the 5th dimension. But at the same time, as he gets teleported to the 5th dimension, he gets shot with the Phantom Zone projector, which is also simultaneously sending him to the Phantom Zone dimension, which rips him in half. Like full, clean down the middle, tears him apart, and kills him. This causes Superman to quit, but we'll talk more about that at the hammock.
Whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow is mostly important specifically because of how Superman responds to killing Mixie. I already talked about it. He quit, but I think it's important to note that Lois is trying to comfort him and tell him that there was really nothing to be done. But Superman tells her that no matter what, Superman cannot kill. Nobody has the right to determine who lives and dies because all life is sacred and Superman broke that fundamental law. So he enters a room full of gold kryptonite, removes his powers, and quits. I don't think Superman is going to quit or fake his death as he does in the comic also. But I do think that idea of Superman not being able to kill, that he doesn't deserve to determine who lives and dies, is going to be crucial to the plot of this story.
Superman, Red and Blue.
And finally, we have Superman, Red and Blue. Now, this isn't like a single comic or even like a bunch of comics that all work in the same story. Hence why I have a bunch of them noted. All the ones here are the ones that I find really important for Superman's characterization. So I've labeled all of them. But yes, it is an anthology book. And I personally think it's kind of way more... It might be the best first thing to read. I don't think All-Star is the best first thing. I think that For All Seasons is incredible and should be one of the first, but I think Red and Blue is where you really find a lot of good characterization. It's an anthology collection of short stories that involve Superman and his characters and really goes into detail about like them specifically. It highlights one core idea and it really gets through. There's a couple of stories that I really do want to talk about, like I really want to talk about, that are so important to me personally. Like the one about Pa Kent learning how to like affirm Clark and like help him come into his own and feel good about himself and understand his place in the world. And is actually where this iconic screenshot comes from. It's a beautiful story, but that's not really the one that I want to talk about today. Today, I want to talk about the first story actually. It's labeled Untitled, but it just doesn't really have a title. Untitled follows Clark as he goes back to a small nation where he was actually kidnapped and put into a labor camp using kryptonite, of course. He was trapped there for like 8 months before Batman eventually came to save him. And in this story, he goes back to that nation as Clark Kent to do a formal interview with the general who led that camp. Clark goes through all the different feelings, all the anger, the embarrassment, the fear that he feels even being near this guy, but talks about how he can't do anything. What can Superman do to stop this guy? His slate's basically clean. He's not saying anything damning in this interview. No matter what article he writes, no matter who he talks to, nobody cares. Then, as Clark packs up his stuff and begins to head off to the airport, he sees a cop car speed by, he looks left and right, and he says, this line: "No matter the consequences, I always care."
I think that last line there about how no matter what, Superman always cares is going to be a big theme of the movie. So much of this conflict seems to be cited by him going to this other country and stopping a genocide, a war that is going on. Nobody cares to stop them because it's probably been going on for a while. Maybe, a little around like 2 years maybe, or way longer than that if you really want to go into the details of history. But nobody really cares or talks about it until something important happens, being Superman gets involved and maybe the Hammer of Bravia comes to attack Metropolis. Now people care. But it's important to note that Superman always cared. He saw this bad thing happening and he immediately stepped in. And I think that is going to be the driving force behind a lot of the conflict in this movie, is that Superman is always stepping in. He's always trying to stop whatever conflict is happening. And then maybe he quits, like I said. Maybe he leaves. Maybe he has to be motivated to come back and the world realizes how much they need him.
And it's the conclusion is over. Now, I've actually shown this in a future. Okay, so that's going to be in there like for whatever it is, because I haven't finished recording that video. In my alt-right pipeline video, where I talk about how a lot of alt-right comic book YouTubers don't read the comics and don't care about reading the comics and are trying to take advantage of younger viewers, I say in that video, the best way to showcase your knowledge and understanding of comic books isn't just to watch way too long recaps of a bunch of different stories that probably won't have anything to do with this movie, but it's just to read comics. I promise you, they're not anywhere near as daunting as they seem. Actually, as a matter of fact, here's a quick guide to read All-Star Superman for free. Please do not follow any of these steps without a really good ad blocker, maybe even several of them. There will be inappropriate content on any website in the form of ads. And I know comics are generally a younger entertainment medium, so if you are younger than like 20, going to these websites to try and, read comics, which I do respect and understand, please don't. And if you are over 20 still, do bring a bunch of ad blockers because it's really annoying. Either way, I don't want anybody to have to engage with this type of media if they aren't trying to. So please be extra careful and safe on the internet. Practice safe internet habits.
Okay, welcome to my guide for how to read the comic books. We're going to start the timer right now. Okay, time. Yeah, it's actually just like really easy. Use this website. Make sure you have ad blocks. I have uBlock and ad block. Look at all the shit that it's blocking. It's very important that you use ad blockers because sometimes an ad will just show up on your screen, which will make it really hard to like actually click to progress. But yeah, that's it.
It's that simple. I even put a speedrun timer to show you just how fast it is. It's not an actual speedrun timer. I don't have Live Split installed, and I don't want to set it all up right now. So that's it. Everything you need to know before Superman hits theaters July 11th, 2025. Or tomorrow, if you're watching this the day it comes out. Happy reading to everyone. Please subscribe and comment your favorite Superman comics. Okay.